Greetings, explorers of the shadows and seekers of hidden truths. If you're hearing these words, it means you are about to embark on a journey like no other. Here at the portal of the unknown, we will dive into the depths of mysteries that transcend the limitations of time and space, challenging everything you know and believe. This is not merely a place of curiosity, but a meeting point between the past and the future, where ancient secrets intertwine with the present and lost prophecies echo in the shadows, waiting to be uncovered. Every step you take on this path will bring forth revelations that could alter your understanding of reality itself. The answers you've searched for throughout your life may be waiting for you, but there are also questions that you may never have imagined possible. At every corner of this portal, there is more than just knowledge. There is a truth that, once discovered, can never be ignored. As you move forward into this unknown territory, prepare to be challenged, questioned, and perhaps even surprised by the discoveries that are about to be revealed. What you will see and hear here may change your destiny, and perhaps even the destiny of all those around you. But remember, not all secrets are meant to be unearthed. Some have been forgotten for a reason, others have been kept silent to protect humanity from its own failings. Yet you, as the brave explorer, are ready to face the truths that many fear. Every part of this journey will be an invitation to expand your mind, to see beyond what is visible to the common eye, and to delve into the deepest layers of human existence. The doors to the unknown are opening now. It's time to prepare for what lies ahead. Today, we delve into the dark visions of Habakkuk, the prophet who dared to question divine justice and received terrifying revelations about the fate of the wicked nations. Habakkuk was not just a passive observer of the events around him. He was a man deeply troubled by the injustices that permeated his time. His heart was filled with questions because he saw evil flourishing while the righteous suffered. He did not fear to question God, to ask him difficult questions, and, with courage, seek answers. His unrest was, in many ways, a reflection of the questions many of us ask when we observe a world where violence, corruption, and arrogance seem endless. The very society that the prophet knew was immersed in chaos and oppression, and he wondered how the righteous could continue to wait when everything seemed lost. The world Habakkuk describes in his visions is not much different from ours. Like in his time, we observe in our own the violence that spreads unchecked, institutions corroded by corruption, and figures of power who, far from seeking justice, seem to feed on arrogance and selfishness. The words of the prophet become a mirror of our reality, for the scene he paints is eerily familiar. In his anguish, Habakkuk questions why evil seems to prosper in the righteous. Those who seek to follow God's path are oppressed and persecuted. At many moments, the feeling that evil reigns may cause us to doubt that justice will ever come. But Habakkuk's words remind us that divine judgment does not fail, and in his sovereignty, God will bring righteousness. In the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 3, God speaks clearly and authoritatively. For the vision awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay. These words are not just a promise, but a powerful reminder that God's justice is not bound by human time. It may seem distant, it may seem delayed, but its arrival is certain and inevitable. God's timing is not human timing, and while we wait, we are called to maintain our faith. The vision of judgment, which seems to tarry before our eyes, is in fact a certainty that transcends the limits of our understanding. Even though impunity may seem to triumph for a moment, Habakkuk assures us that judgment will come with the precision of a divine clock. The echo of God's response resonates through the generations, reminding us that no matter how the wicked nations rise with arrogance, none will stand before the power of the Most High. Just as Habakkuk's vision awaits an appointed time, our faith must also be sustained in the expectation that even when evil seems to dominate, divine justice will prevail at the right moment. What we see with our eyes may divert us from trusting in God's promises, but the certainty of judgment is an anchor that does not fail. As we reflect on the prophet's words, we are invited to renew our hope in a God who does not delay, who at the right time will bring judgment and the restoration of all things. The arrogance of the nations will be brought low, and justice will be established, not according to human whim, but by the sovereign will of the Creator. Habakkuk saw the relentless advance of the Babylonians, a people thirsting for conquest, crushing entire nations without mercy. These fierce warriors, with their powerful armies, marched unstoppable, leaving a trail of destruction wherever they went. They knew no mercy, and their hunger for power had no limits. For the prophet, this vision was a brutal shock. He watched helplessly as the Babylonians, considered by many to be a wicked nation, ravaged lands and peoples, violating everything that was sacred and just. What he saw made no sense to his understanding of justice, and as a man of faith, Habakkuk could not help but question God. Habakkuk's deep anguish poured out in his words as he, overwhelmed by perplexity and suffering, directly questioned God. Why do you tolerate the treacherous? Why are you silent while the wicked swallow up those more righteous than themselves? Habakkuk 1:13. This question reveals the pain of a prophet who not only saw evil prospering, but also witnessed the suffering of the righteous at the hands of the wicked. For him, it seemed that injustice was winning, and God, who had always been the source of hope and righteousness, seemed silent in the face of such wickedness. Habakkuk's pain is the pain of all who, when looking at the world, ask why evil seems to prevail and why the righteous, those who seek to live uprightly, are the ones who suffer the most. The answer God gave Habakkuk, however, was terrifying and unsettling. God revealed that he would use the very oppressors, the Babylonians, as instruments of judgment against the corrupt and wicked nations. God was not ignoring evil or forgetting about injustice. He was, in fact, raising the Babylonians to punish those in sin. The divine response, though surprising, made it clear that nothing would escape God's judgment. The Babylonians, though used as instruments of correction, would also face God's wrath for their cruelty and corruption. They, like all nations that rise against justice and morality, would not go unpunished. The judgment that seemed delayed for the righteous would eventually be poured out, and those who for a time seemed invincible would see their arrogance destroyed before God's perfect justice. Thus, God assured Habakkuk that justice would be done, but in his own time. Those who sow violence and injustice, no matter how much they seem to dominate momentarily, will reap what they have sown. The great lesson God imparts to Habakkuk is that no evil goes unpunished. Even the instruments of judgment, like the Babylonians, who seemingly triumph over the righteous, will not escape God's judgment. God's sovereignty is shown in the fact that he even uses the most incomprehensible circumstances to fulfill his purposes, and his judgment will always be faithful and perfect according to his eternal plan. The 5 woes pronounced in Habakkuk 2 powerfully reveal the fate of the arrogant and those who enrich themselves at the cost of destruction. Each of these woes is a condemnation of those who, immersed in greed and corruption, think they can build empires upon the ruins of others. The prophet, with heavy and loaded words filled with justice that overflows from the very sovereignty of God, issues a warning to those who accumulate wealth through the suffering of the innocent and relentless exploitation. In Habakkuk 2 verse 6, he says, "Woe to him who piles up stolen goods. How long will this go on?" These words, spoken in the distant past, resonate powerfully in the present day, reminding us that injustice will not go unanswered. Habakkuk's words are a prophetic cry against power structures that perpetuate oppression, exploitation, and the despair of millions who are often seen only as numbers in a cruel, inhumane system. Today, just as in Habakkuk's time, greed and injustice spread unchecked, seeming to dominate the realms of power across the world. The relentless pursuit of wealth and power is a present reality in many places, where those who already have much take even more from the most vulnerable. Amidst this reality, the prophet's words echo with the same urgency. He reminds us that no matter how the wicked may prosper for a time, their reign will not be eternal. Those who think they can accumulate wealth at the cost of others' destruction and suffering are, in fact, digging their own graves. No riches, no opulence built on injustice will stand. The arrogance of those who rise above the wreckage of the fallen will be crushed by the divine judgment, which will come with the full force and precision of a just God. The prophet warns us with undeniable clarity. No empire built on the blood of the innocent will remain standing for long. Prosperity built on the foundations of injustice cannot be sustained, for sooner or later, divine judgment will come. Habakkuk, in declaring the woes, reminds us that God will not remain indifferent to the injustices happening before his eyes. He will not allow the arrogance of the powerful to prevail over the needy and oppressed. God's promise is clear. Those who enrich themselves at the expense of others' suffering will face the consequences of their actions, and the empire of injustice they build will be toppled. The application of Habakkuk's words is universal. In an age marked by deep inequalities and the constant struggle for power and wealth, the prophet calls us to reflect on the consequences of exploitation and abuse. He challenges us to recognize that, no matter how immune injustices may seem to judgment, they will eventually be corrected. Greed and corruption will come at a cost, and God's judgment will be inevitable for those who place themselves above divine law in pursuit of more power, more wealth, and more dominion. Habakkuk's cry is not just a condemnation of the past, but an urgent warning for all times, including our own, where the wicked seem to have room to grow. But there is hope. Despite all the dark visions that Habakkuk witnessed and the terrifying revelations about the fate of the wicked nations, the prophet found refuge in faith. Amidst the anguish and uncertainty, he clung to an eternal truth that transcends the ages and still resonates with the same power. Faith in God is the anchor that keeps the righteous firm, even when the world around them seems to collapse. Habakkuk, like many of us, could have succumbed to despair in the face of imminent devastation, but he chose to believe that, despite everything, God would be faithful to his promises. Even when violence and injustice seemed to reign, Habakkuk found solace in the certainty that God, in his sovereignty, would preserve the righteous. His trust was not in the visible circumstances, but in a spiritual reality that transcends any temporal understanding. But the righteous will live by his faith. Habakkuk 2:4. This verse, perhaps one of the most emblematic in the entire book, is a call to trust in God's justice, even when everything around us seems to fall apart. It is not blind faith, but a faith that is grounded in the belief that, despite appearances, God is in control of everything. The prophet, in his doubts and questions, did not cease to believe that in the end, God's justice would prevail, and that those who remained faithful despite the adversities would be preserved. This is a principle that transcends time. Faith is the key to spiritual survival, not the absence of adversity, but the certainty that God will not abandon his own. God's judgment, though certain and imminent for those who practice evil, does not mean the end for the righteous. On the contrary, Habakkuk's word assures us that while judgment is a reality for the wicked, the faithful will be preserved. This does not mean that the righteous will live without difficulties or trials. No, faith does not promise a life free from suffering, but it guarantees that in the end, God's justice will prevail, and that the righteous, even in the midst of chaos, will find refuge and protection in God's hands. The faithfulness of the righteous, anchored in faith, will be rewarded, and the judgment that seems to threaten everyone around them will not touch those who trust in God. In our own time, where difficulties and uncertainties surround us, Habakkuk's verse remains a beacon of hope. Just like the prophet, we are called to live by faith, trusting that even when things seem to fall apart, God is working behind the scenes to fulfill his plans. Faith is not an escape from reality, but an unwavering certainty that in the end, the victory belongs to the Lord. He preserves the faithful, and his justice, though it may seem delayed, will always be fulfilled in its appointed time. Judgment is certain, but the faithful will stand firm, trusting in God's faithfulness. Like Habakkuk, we can cry out in the midst of pain and uncertainty, but at the same time, we can rest in the hope that in the end, justice will be established and our faith will sustain us. The final cry of Habakkuk resonates as a hymn of unwavering trust, a declaration of faith that transcends all circumstances and finds its refuge in God. Amid his doubts and the suffering that he knew was coming upon the nation, the prophet did not let himself be consumed by despair, but expressed a deep trust in the Lord's promises. He declared, "Though the fig tree does not bud and there are no grapes on the vines, yet I will rejoice in the Lord, I will be joyful in God my Savior." Habakkuk 3, verse 17 through 18. These words are a powerful testimony of faith's resilience in the face of adversity. They do not speak of a life without difficulties, but of a radical trust in God even when everything around seems to be falling apart. Habakkuk knew that destruction and calamity were approaching, but instead of succumbing to fear, he chose to rejoice in the Lord. By mentioning the fig tree and the vines, the prophet uses agricultural symbols that were essential to life and prosperity in his time. To him, the fig tree blooming and the vines bearing fruit were signs of blessings and abundance. However, he knew that even these blessings could fail, as they indeed would with the advance of destruction and judgment. Even when the sources of his security and sustenance failed, he would not stop trusting in God. The prophet teaches us that true joy is not found in temporary circumstances, but in the security of our relationship with God. The faith Habakkuk expresses is one that, despite lack, loss, and scarcity, still rejoices in the Lord. It does not depend on external things, but on the certainty that in any situation, God is worthy of worship and trust. These words of Habakkuk serve as a powerful reminder that even in the darkest days, God remains in control. When things seem to be out of place and chaos takes over, it is easy to be consumed by anxiety and fear. But Habakkuk, with his unwavering faith, challenges us to look beyond immediate circumstances and place our trust in the God who is sovereign over all things. He teaches us that true joy does not come from favorable circumstances, but from the assurance that our salvation is secure in God. Regardless of what happens around us, our hope is anchored in something firmer than any earthly difficulty or challenge. God, who is our salvation, will never fail. In declaring his trust in God, Habakkuk also teaches us a lesson on perseverance in faith. He knew that destruction and adversity were imminent, but even in the face of disaster, he refused to stop believing in God's goodness and sovereign control. His words become an echo of hope for all who face difficult times. They remind us that even when life seems to take everything away, we can still rejoice in God because he is constant, faithful, and worthy of trust, no matter the circumstances. Just like Habakkuk, we are called to place our trust in God, even when everything around us seems to be crumbling. His presence, his love, and his faithfulness are what truly sustain us and give us the strength to exult, regardless of pain or loss. The book of Habakkuk teaches us a profound and powerful lesson. Divine judgment is inevitable. Even when it seems that evil prospers and injustice prevails, God is in control, and the time for his justice is drawing near. Habakkuk's vision, full of questioning and anguish, finds its answer in the certainty that despite human uncertainties, divine justice will be fulfilled in God's perfect timing. But beyond this inevitability of judgment, the book also invites us to unwavering faith. In times of difficulty, amid suffering and perplexity in the face of adversity, we are challenged to fully trust in God, believing that he is in charge and that his justice is perfect, even when we cannot comprehend the paths he chooses. The prophet shows us that, in a world dominated by violence, corruption, and pride, the only true response is steadfast faith and unwavering trust in God's sovereignty. The choice is clear. We can follow the path of arrogance and destruction like those who oppose God's justice, or we can choose to trust in the one who is our salvation, remaining faithful to his word. As we await the fulfillment of divine judgment, the book of Habakkuk calls us to reflect on our own choices and to position our hearts before God, trusting that he will be faithful to his promise to protect and preserve the righteous. Just like Habakkuk, we are invited to live by faith, regardless of the circumstances around us. Judgment will come, but the faithfulness and hope of the righteous are grounded in the certainty that God never fails and that he always fulfills his word. If you wish to continue this journey through prophetic mysteries and delve deeper into the teachings and revelations that the Bible offers, subscribe to the Portal of the Unknown. Here we explore the shadows that hide the deepest truths, those that few dare to face. The path of faith and divine justice is illuminated by the light of understanding, and together we can unravel the secrets that challenge the present and prepare us for the future. Don't miss the opportunity to continue this journey. The truth is waiting for you.